What's up guys, it's Pliskin here, and today we're going to be talking about how to fix Metal Gear Solid 3's Sandbox. Now, I'm not in any way saying that Metal Gear Solid 3 is a bad game. It's probably one of the greatest games out there. Nor am I saying that its Sandbox is bad. What I am saying is that there are some weaknesses that keep it from being the best Sandbox in the series, or better yet, that keep it from being the best Sandbox that it can be. Now, to make sure you guys understand that I appreciate Metal Gear Solid 3 Sandbox and you don't start lynching me, please wait, is by going over the strengths or things I really like about the game's Sandbox, which are the environmental interaction that you get. I mean, the tranq gun alone opens up so many interactive possibilities with the environment, with catching animals and then releasing them on opponents. In there, the way you can bomb out certain shacks and then your enemies have different weapons, or you can destroy their food supplies. It's freaking brilliant. The shotgun in Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the best shotguns in any video game ever. I'll die on that hill. The way that the enemies use it and the way that you use it is brilliantly balanced. I really like how the game handles enemy snipers. Of course, this isn't just about the end, but this is also about the Ocelot unit snipers that you'll fight occasionally throughout the game. I like how the game gives you warnings through their glares, whereas some other games just have you get shot out of nowhere. Here in Metal Gear Solid 3, you get a very immersive way to let you know that an enemy might be aiming at you from afar. I like how the LMG in this game is used not just as a secret power weapon for you to unlock, but also as a threatening weapon that the enemies use. As I said before, you can blow up food shacks and make sure enemies can only use scorpions, which is like the weakest automatic in the game. By default, they'll use AKs, which are competent, but the higher ranking enemies will use the M63, which can really chew through you if you're not careful. So there's a very clear level up system there that I really like. But now this brings us to the meat of the video. Let's talk about some real weaknesses that Snake Eater's Sandbox has. Now, I know a lot of you have heard me rag on the 1911 many times before, but I cannot stress enough just how poorly implemented this gun is. On the one hand, it's supposed to be your combat stealth pistol. If we look towards Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 1, hell, even Metal Gear Solid 5 and 4 a little with some of the pistol options that are in there, have your combat pistols be this competent, quick firing weapon that can also be suppressed so you have a little bit of headshot utility there when you're sneaking around. In Metal Gear Solid 3, the 1911 isn't any of that. Yeah, you have the stealthy headshot option, but nothing else really applies here. You can fire fast, but you're not going to do shit for damage. You try to do body shots on enemies like you would in Metal Gear Solid 1 or 2 or 5, and nothing's going to happen to these guys. They will tank an entire magazine out of your 1911 and get right back up and start shooting at you. This pistol is way too weak. It's just abysmal. If you're going to have a gun that doesn't have that much ammunition, you need to give it a little bit more oomph, maybe not power and kill potential because it's still a pistol, but maybe some sort of stun aspect. There is a stun aspect when you use the 1911 in Snake Eater, but at the same time, it's not enough to really make this a competent gun. So the first thing that I would do is trash the 1911 immediately. Now, I know a lot of people love this gun for some reason, but it's really just hampering the Sandbox. Instead, what I would do is replace it with the Scorpion. Now, the Scorpion is another weakness in the game's Sandbox because you find it all the way in Groznygrad towards the end, you barely find any ammo for it, and there aren't a lot of uses for it. I've had commenters mention that they use it to take out the missiles when they're fighting the Shagoad, but at the same time, if you have the M63, it does that just as good, if not better. So why exactly would I want to take the Scorpion and keep it, whereas I want to get rid of the 1911? Well, if you think about it, Metal Gear Solid combat pistols slowly evolved into the first suppressed rifle that you would use in the game. Think about it. We started off with the SOCOM in the first Metal Gear Solid 1, a competent weapon that you could use for stealth and combat. It fires fast and you can take down a couple enemies before you run dry. Metal Gear Solid 2, you got the same thing with the USB and SOCOM respectively. Metal Gear Solid 3, this is when that role started to shift from pistol and goes over to assault rifle, in this game's case the M16. Metal Gear Solid 4, that role is taken up by the M4. And then by the time you reach Metal Gear Solid 5, that bread and butter combo of tranq pistol and suppressed combat pistol has turned into, forever, suppressed tranq pistol and suppressed combat assault rifle. And it's a natural progression because these pistols were always fast-firing, competent stealth weapons that were still outshined by other combat rifles, shotguns, whatever. So by using the VZ Scorpion, we have this PDW that can play a lot of different roles. It's automatic, so it bridges the gap between that whole, semi-automatic, but you can spam the trigger to get the results you want really quickly, and then, assault rifle that you can just squeeze the trigger in combat. This is both of them in one. So you can use this, for example, with the stock folded, as a close-range automatic clearing weapon. It's not going to do as much damage as, say, the AK or the M63, but it's still going to be competent for if you get caught. It'll burn through its suppressor. However, you can also use it in an alternative mode. Instead of using the laser sight and just spraying at close range, you can extend the stock and aim down the sights for long-range shots in semi-auto mode, which is already in place in the game since you can switch from semi-auto to full auto with the Scorpion at any time you want. So here we have something that can act as that close-range pistol where you just fire fast and chew through enemies in front of you, but at the same time it can also act like that M16 or MRS4 type weapon where you could get some pretty good mid to long range shots with it. So that's what I mean by replacing the 1911 and in essence the M16, take those two weapons, get rid of them, and make the Scorpion a fusion between the two. So you'd have this marriage between the MK22 Hush Puppy tranq pistol and the PDW Scorpion here. And by doing this, what you could do is take off a very highlighted, overpowered aspect of the MK22 where you can just scope guys from across the map. I mean, during the end boss fight, it's almost more practical to use the MK22 than it is any other weapon because it's just as viable at almost every single range in this game. So you could also nerf the MK22 a little bit more and encourage players to try out different weapons, and it wouldn't really hurt the flow of the stealth because you could still use this Scorpion in close-range combat encounters to just burn through some low-level grunts and get away really fast, but then you could also again extend that stock and have it act like the M16 does, and have it fire at those longer ranges that you would traditionally use the MK22 for. At the same time, I don't want this to be an ultimate long-range gun, so you could shoot at further ranges, but we can put in some bullet drop to balance it out. That way, it's still a clear progression in terms of long-range automatics, starting with Scorpion, to the AK, to the M63. So by getting rid of the 1911 and the M16, not only do we provide a much better pistol/PDW/SMG type weapon for Snake to use, but we also get the progression of automatics to work a hell of a lot better. Instead of being, Scorpion on the bottom being useless, AK, and then having it be redundant with the M16 and then the M63, it's a much more clear progression from your starter PDW automatic pistol type weapon to your base assault rifle, which is more competent at ranges and does more damage, to the M63, which becomes that ultimate combat weapon. We get a nice little level up system in there, but at the same time, every single weapon still retains its role. Now at this point, you might be saying, Pliskin, what if I want to engage at longer ranges but still use a non-lethal weapon? And don't worry, I've thought about that as well. You know the Mosin Nagant that you can get from the end if you beat him non-lethally? Well, we could differentiate it a little bit more from the SVD by allowing you to suppress that. Now you might be thinking, Pliskin, isn't that just going to repeat the same problem that we were facing with the MK22? It would, but what we can do with this bonus weapon, we're unlocking it much later in the game, so it kind of balances itself out as an endgame power weapon, and we can severely limit the ammo that you have. So we can make this a really good tranq weapon that you could use at crazy ranges, but you want to treat that ammo very preciously, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you're doing a non-lethal run and the only option to stay non-lethal is to take out a guy really far away that's about to see you, so you'd whip this thing out and use it. So it becomes more of that power weapon / utility weapon for niche scenarios, since the ammo for it is so rare. A little object in the sandbox that bothers me a little bit, but not so much, would be the shaft grenades. I'd want to get rid of them entirely. They make sense in Metal Gear Solids 1 and 2 because you're dealing with drones, security cameras, and that kind of stuff. But in Snake Eater, it's kind of useless to have. We can just clear it out of here. It's just excess fat at this point. So yeah, that's pretty much how I would fix up Snake Eater Sandbox. You see, I'm not trying to take apart your game or ruin it or completely reinvent it. It's just trimming out some excess fat and redefining some of the weapons that are already in the game to suit roles much better and fall in line with the progression. Add in a little bit more of those power weapons in there that you could use. I feel like this would make the Sandbox feel a lot more intuitive and the gameplay would run a lot smoother. 1911, again, pointless. The M16, redundant with the AK. There's a lot of guns in Snake Eater that lose their role as soon as you find a newer, better one. And it's not in the same way as it would happen in a level up system. It's just a little messy. And I feel by doing this, it would really clean it up. Do you think I'm completely wrong? Do you like the ideas I brought up in this video? Do you think that Snake Eater Sandbox is great? Do you think it's terrible? Would you change it in different ways? Let me know down below. This has been Pliskin, over and out.